I had 30 seconds before the silver wine was poured and the true alpha's heart stopped beating forever. My hand trembled just enough to smear the ink across the napkin as I folded it into a tight square. The linen felt impossibly thin, like it might dissolve before it reached him. Around me, the Lunar Peak Pavilion hummed with the deep resonance of power. Claws retracted beneath manicured nails, dominance masked behind champagne flutes, the whisper of silk against velvet booth seats. Outside, the mountain wind screamed against the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the territory. But in here, everything was warm, oppressively warm, thick with competing pheromones. I approached the alpha's table like I was walking toward my own death. Noah Blackthorne sat with his back to the glass wall, the silver moon packlands stretching behind him like a kingdom of shadow and starlight. He looked like he'd been forged from moonlight and violence. Sharp features, dark hair falling across his brow, a hand-tailored suit. His fingers rested on the obsidian table, tapping a slow, predatory rhythm. Beside him, Lady Celine leaned close, whispering something that made her crimson lips curve into a smile. Her moonstone choker caught the candlelight, throwing pale fractals across the white linen. She looked like a woman in love. But she wasn't. 15 minutes ago, I'd heard her order his assassination. Before we continue, I've noticed that many of you enjoy watching my videos but haven't subscribed yet. Please help support and grow this channel by liking the video, dropping a comment, and subscribing if you enjoy the stories. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Now let's get back to the story. The wine cellar at Lunar Peak wasn't really a cellar. It was a climate-controlled vault carved into the mountain itself, all stone walls and amber lighting that made the bottles glow like captured fire. I'd been sent down to retrieve a 1947 Bordeaux for table 12, threading my way past rows of vintage reds when I heard voices, female, sharp, speaking in the old tongue.
Sì, è al tavolo principale, vicino al vetro. Yes.
He's at the main table, by the glass. I froze between the Cabernets and the Pinot Noirs, my hand still on the bottle I'd been reaching for. My knowledge of the old language was limited at best, enough to understand when an alpha was giving orders versus making small talk. But I caught fragments. Main table, glass wall.
And then, gli altri sono già in posizione. 2 al bar.
Tre vicino alla cucina, which means the others are already in position.
2 at the bar.
3 near the kitchen. My breath stopped. She switched then, her voice dropping into something guttural, the rogue dialect, all growls and consonants that sounded like tearing meat. I couldn't parse the words, but the tone was unmistakable. This wasn't a conversation.
It was a countdown.
Heels clicked against stone, moving toward the stairs. I pressed myself against the wine rack, praying the shadows and bottles would hide my scent. Through the gaps between $1,000 vintages, I caught a glimpse of her, tall, regal, wearing an ivory gown that probably cost more than my year's rent. Platinum hair swept into an elegant twist, moonstone jewelry glittering. Lady Celine Ashford, the woman currently sitting at Noah's table, playing the role of devoted fiancée to the man she'd just arranged to have killed. She disappeared up the stairs, her perfume lingering, jasmine and nightshade, expensive and deadly. I stood there for 10 seconds, 15, 20, waiting for my legs to remember how to work. When I finally climbed back to the main floor, the Bordeaux forgotten, my mind was racing through what I'd heard. Main table by the glass.
2 at the bar.
3 near the kitchen. I stepped onto the restaurant floor, and everything clicked into horrifying focus. The main table, corner position. Noah Blackthorne and Lady Celine, the Alpha King and his future queen. Their bonding ceremony had been announced 3 moons ago, a political alliance that would unite the northern and coastal territories. A merger disguised as a mating bond. Or maybe just murder disguised as both. I scanned the restaurant with new eyes, My serving tray pressed against my chest like a shield. Two wolves at the bar, mid-30s, dark suits, nursing whiskeys they hadn't touched in 30 minutes. They weren't watching the territorial map on the screen. They were watching Noah's table. 3 rogues near the kitchen entrance, loitering for 20 minutes now. Menus open but never ordering. 2 had their backs to the wall. The third kept his hand inside his jacket, fingers resting on something silver. My heart slammed against my ribs, so hard I thought my bones might crack. I looked back at Noah, laughing at something Celine said, completely unaware that the woman stroking his arm had just orchestrated his execution. That in less than 20 minutes, when the ceremonial wine arrived and everyone raised their glasses in toast, 5 rogues were going to fill him with silver-tipped rounds. I could walk away, clock out early, say I was feeling faint, let whatever was about to happen just happen. Men like Noah Blackthorne didn't rise to Alpha King without making enemies. Maybe he'd earned this. But then I thought about my brother in that cramped apartment on the edge of Pack territory, studying by candlelight because we couldn't afford the electric bill. I thought about every teacher who'd tutored him for free, every neighbor who'd slipped us food when the council rations ran thin. I thought about mercy unearned and freely given. I thought, I can't just let someone die. So I grabbed a linen napkin from my apron, clicked my pen, and wrote 7 words that would either save his life or end mine. My reflection in the crystal glasses looked ghost pale as I made my way to Noah's table. Each step felt like walking through water, time stretching and contracting. I was hyper-aware of everything. The scratch of my uniform against my skin, the squeak of my shoes on marble, the way Celine's laugh sounded like breaking ice. "You're McAllen, Alpha." My voice came out steady, professional, like I hadn't just overheard a murder plot, like my hands weren't shaking hard enough to rattle the glassware. I set the crystal tumbler down on the white linen, neat and precise. The whiskey caught the candlelight, glowing amber. And then I did the thing every Omega server is trained never to do. I touched him. My thumb pressed against the back of his hand as I slid the folded napkin beneath his coaster. The contact lasted maybe half a second, a violation of every rule, every boundary between his world and mine. But the moment our skin connected, something electric shot through me, a recognition so primal my wolf stirred for the first time in years. Noah's eyes snapped to mine. They were silver gold, not cold but calculating, the kind of eyes that saw through flesh and bones straight into intention. His gaze held mine for a beat too long, and I felt something shift in my chest. Not just fear, but something deeper. The pull of fate, of destiny clicking into place like a lock engaging. "Read it," I mouthed. "Please." His fingers curled around the napkin, palm covering it completely. "Is there something wrong with the service, darling?" Celine's voice cut through the moment, honey-sweet and venomous. Noah's expression didn't change. He lifted his glass, took a slow sip of whiskey, and with his other hand, unfolded the note beneath the table where Celine couldn't see. I stood there, tray clutched to my chest, watching his face for any reaction. Nothing. Not a flicker, not a flinch. Just those silver gold eyes, scanning the 7 words. "Your fiancé sold you out." There in position. Then his jaw tightened, imperceptible unless you were looking for it. The smallest tell. He knew. Noah set his glass down with a soft clink that somehow cut through the ambient noise of the restaurant. When he spoke, his voice was smooth, controlled, the kind of calm that preceded violence. "I'd like to make a toast." Celine blinked, her smile flickering. "Now?" "We haven't even received the ceremonial wine yet." "Now." He gestured to me without looking away from her, and the dominance in his tone made every wolf in the room go still. "Another glass for my fiancé." The same pour. I hesitated. The glass shattered first. One moment Noah was reaching for the second whiskey glass I'd poured, his silver gold eyes still locked on Celine's face, and the next the floor-to-ceiling windows exploded inward in a spray of crystal and moonlight. The winter wind howled into the dining room, carrying with it the scent of rogue wolves and silver-tipped death. The chaos erupted like a living thing. Wolves screamed, chairs overturned, and somewhere in the kitchen a fire alarm began its shrill wailing. I caught a glimpse of the rogues at the bar moving with predatory speed, weapons drawn, but my focus was on Noah. He'd gone utterly still, that supernatural calm that came right before an alpha went feral. Get down. His command cracked through the air with enough dominance to drop every wolf in the room to their knees. Everyone except me. I was already moving, my omega instinct screaming at me to run, to hide, to survive. But my feet carried me toward him instead of away, some invisible thread pulling me closer even as my rational mind shrieked that I was going to die. Celine was on her feet, her elegant facade cracking. Noah, what? But her performance was wasted. He wasn't looking at her anymore. He was looking at the three rogues emerging from the kitchen corridor, crossbows raised, silver-tipped arrows gleaming in the chandelier light. The first arrow flew. I watched it arc through the air in slow motion, watched it angle directly toward Noah's chest, toward his heart. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. Then Noah moved, not toward safety, but toward me, his body blurred with supernatural speed, closing the distance between us in less than a heartbeat. The shift took him mid-stride, bones cracking and reforming, expensive suit tearing as his form expanded into something massive and primal and utterly terrifying. His wolf was enormous, easily twice the size of any I'd ever seen, with fur so black it seemed to swallow light. He planted himself between me and the rogues like a living fortress, and the arrow that should have pierced Noah's heart buried itself in his shoulder instead. He didn't even flinch. A growl rumbled from his chest, so deep and resonant, I felt it in my bones, felt it wake something ancient and answering in my own blood. More arrows flew. Noah's massive form absorbed them, his body shielding mine as silver tips found fur and flesh. Each impact made me flinch, made my wolf howl in distress at seeing our alpha wounded, our mate hurt. The word crashed through my mind unbidden.
Mate.
The bond I'd felt when our skin touched wasn't imagination. It was fate. Around us, the lunar peak had become a war zone. Pack wolves were shifting, engaging the rogues in brutal close combat. Blood spattered across white linen and marble floors. But Noah didn't join the fight. He stayed covering me, his huge wolf form curled protectively around my fragile human body, golden eyes blazing with feral intelligence and something else. Recognition.
Choice.
Promise. I've got you, he seemed to say, without words. I've got you, and I'm not letting go. The obsidian fortress rose from the mountain like a dark crown, all sharp angles and black stone that drank the moonlight. I'd heard stories about the Alpha King's stronghold my entire life, whispered rumors of a place where enemies disappeared and treaties were forged in blood. Being escorted through its iron gates with Noah's hand wrapped around my wrist felt surreal, like stumbling into a nightmare dressed as salvation. He'd shifted back to human form during the drive, his beta providing him with clothes while I sat in shocked silence, still tasting copper from where I'd bitten my lip during the attack. The arrows had been pulled from his flesh, the wounds already healing with supernatural speed, but silver scars remained, pale marks against the skin that would take weeks to fully fade. Now he stood before me in what I assumed was his private study, all floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the territory and furniture that cost more than my entire existence. He'd traded the torn suit for simple black clothing, but the dominance radiating from him was unchanged, maybe even amplified here in his domain.
See.
It wasn't a request. I lowered myself into the leather chair across from his desk, acutely aware of how I looked, uniform stained with wine and blood, hair falling from its practical bun. His eyes tracked every movement, analytical and cold in a way they hadn't been when he'd shielded me with his body. You're going to tell me exactly how a waitress overheard an assassination plot. Noah's voice was soft, deadly. And you're going to tell me why I shouldn't assume you're part of it. The accusation hit like a physical blow. I saved your life. Or you're an exceptionally clever plant sent to gain my trust. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed, radiating skepticism. Rogue conspiracies don't typically leave Omega witnesses alive. Yet here you are, conveniently positioned to play hero. My wolf stirred, restless and angry at the challenge. I overheard Lady Celine in the service hallway. She was using a telepathic link, probably thought no one was close enough to catch it. I heard her confirm positions with someone named Fenris, heard her order your death. The words tumbled out, desperate. I didn't ask to know.
I didn't want to be involved.
But I couldn't just let you die. Fenris. Noah's expression darkened. You're certain that was the name? I'm certain she wanted you dead and didn't care who else got hurt in the process. I met his gaze, refusing to cower despite every instinct screaming at me to submit to his alpha authority. I'm not part of this. I'm just trying to keep my brother and myself alive. Something shifted in his eyes, that calculating coldness fracturing. He moved closer, invading my space until I could smell pine and smoke and something uniquely him. Look at me. His hand caught my chin, tilting my face up, and the moment our skin connected again, that electric recognition flared between us, impossible to deny. His pupils dilated, silver bleeding into gold. You feel it. Not a question. An accusation and a revelation and a curse all wrapped into 3 words. Yes. My voice broke. I feel it. The bond. A mere waitress, Noah murmured, his thumb brushing my jaw, who happens to be my fated mate. Fate has a vicious sense of humor. Or impeccable timing, I whispered back. His lips curved into something too sharp to be called a smile. We'll see. The phone call came at dawn, shattering what little sleep I'd managed in the fortress's guest quarters. I didn't recognize the number, but I recognized the voice on the other end, that same gravelly rogue dialect I'd heard in Celine's telepathic link. Fenris, the Omega waitress who thinks she's a hero. His words dripped with dark amusement. You cost us our Alpha King, so we took something of yours. Fair trade, don't you think? My blood turned to ice. What did you take? A student. Lives on the edge of Silver Moon territory. Studies by candlelight because his Omega sister can't afford the electric bill. Smart kid. Be a shame if something happened to him. The threat was casual, almost bored. You have 48 hours to deliver Noah Blackthorn to the coordinates we'll send, or your brother learns what silver poisoning feels like from the inside out. The line went dead. I stood there, phone shaking in my hand, the world tilting sideways. Ethan. They had Ethan, my baby brother, who'd never hurt anyone, who spent his nights studying pack law because he dreamed of making the territories fairer for wolves like us. They had him, and they were going to kill him with silver, the slowest and most agonizing death a wolf could suffer. I was halfway to the door when it opened. Noah stood in the threshold, already dressed, his expression grim. I heard. The fortress wards picked up the call. They have my brother. My voice cracked. They're going to poison him with silver if I don't give them you. You're not giving them anything. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. We're getting your brother back. We. I stared at him. Why would you help me? I'm nothing. Just an Omega who happened to overhear the wrong conversation. My brother is nobody. We don't matter to someone like you. Noah's jaw tightened. You saved my life. That makes you Pack, whether you wear my mark or not. And Pack protects Pack. He moved closer, his presence filling the space. Besides, if they're using your brother as bait, they're expecting you to come alone, desperate and easy to capture. They're not expecting the Alpha King to walk into their camp with you. You can't just walk into a rogue camp. It's suicide. No, he corrected. It's strategy. I've been trying to locate Fenris's base for months. They've been careful, moving camps, covering their trails. But now they've given us a way in. His eyes met mine, calculating and fierce. They want leverage. We'll give them what they expect, then take everything they have. 20 hours later, we were deep in the disputed border territories, following the coordinates Fenris had sent. Noah had insisted I memorize every detail of the plan, testing me until I could recite it backwards. He didn't treat me like fragile cargo to be protected. He treated me like an operative, like my observations and insights mattered as much as his strength. You notice things, he'd said while we studied maps of the border forests. You saw the rogues in the restaurant before any of my trained guards did. You heard Celine's link when she thought she was secure. That's not luck, Olivia. That's skill. Now, crouched in the underbrush outside the rogue camp, I watched him work through scenarios with the same intensity. 3 guards at the perimeter, 2 at the main tent where they're likely holding hostages. The silver stores will be separate, probably the furthest structure from the prisoner area to avoid accidental exposure. How do you know? I whispered, because that's where I'd put it. He glanced at me, something almost like respect in his eyes. Same way you knew the rogues in the restaurant were positioned for a coordinated strike. You think like someone who's studied survival, who's had to notice details to stay alive. So tell me, where would you hold a hostage if you wanted to keep him compliant, but healthy enough to use as bait? I studied the camp's layout, my mind working through the logic. Center tent, close enough to guard, far enough from the perimeter that if something goes wrong, they have time to kill him before rescue arrives. But not near the silver stores because accidental poisoning defeats the leverage. Noah's smile was sharp and genuine.
Exactly.
Your mind is as valuable as any weapon, Olivia. Don't forget that. The words settled into my chest, warm and foreign. No one had ever valued my thoughts before, only my ability to stay invisible and follow orders. But Noah saw something else. Something I'd forgotten was there. Ready? He asked. I checked the small blade he'd given me, concealed in my sleeve. Ready. Then let's get your brother back. The rescue had gone sideways. Ethan was safe, barely conscious but alive, currently being carried back to the fortress by Noah's beta. But the extraction had cost us our advantage. Fenris knew we were here now, knew we'd breached his camp, and his rogues were tracking us through the forest like bloodhounds after prey. Keep moving. Noah's hand pressed against my lower back, guiding me through the darkness. We'd been running for 3 hours, weaving through territories I didn't recognize, using every trick he knew to mask our scent trail. But the rogues were persistent, and I could hear them getting closer, their howls echoing through the trees. I'm slowing you down. My lungs burned, my legs screaming in protest. An alpha could run for days without rest. An omega, like me, had maybe another hour before my body gave out completely. Leave me. Get back to the fortress, and I'm not leaving you. The dominance in his voice made my wolf whimper and submit, but there was something else beneath it. Desperation.
Fear.
Not for himself, but for me. We're almost to the safe house. Just a little further. The safe house turned out to be a cave hollowed into the mountainside, hidden behind a waterfall that made it nearly impossible to track by scent. Noah sealed the entrance with a boulder that should have required 3 wolves to move, his strength making it look effortless. Then he was beside me, checking for injuries with hands that were surprisingly gentle. You're bleeding. He pulled my jacket aside, revealing the gash along my ribs where a rogue's claws had caught me during the fight. Not deep enough to be fatal, but deep enough to need attention. It's not that bad. But my voice shook, adrenaline crash hitting me all at once. We'd saved Ethan. We'd actually done it. My brother was safe, And I was here, alone with the Alpha King in a cave, while rogues hunted us outside. Noah's fingers traced the wound's edge, his touch igniting that electric connection between us. This is going to scar. I've had worse. I try to sound brave, but the truth was I'd never had worse. I'd spent my whole life avoiding conflict, staying small and invisible. Tonight I'd fought rogues, infiltrated their camp, and survived. It felt surreal. You were incredible tonight. Noah's voice dropped lower, intimate in the darkness. The way you read their patrol patterns, found the weak point in their defenses. You think like a strategist, Olivia. Like someone trained for war. I'm just an Omega who learned to notice things.
No.
His hand cupped my face, tilting it toward him. You're not. I suspected it before, but watching you tonight confirmed it. You're not Omega at all. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Your strength, your speed, the way you held your own against rogues who should have overpowered you easily. The way every wolf we passed tonight reacted to your presence with deference, not dominance. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. Someone lied to you about what you are. Someone suppressed your true nature, probably when you were young enough not to question it. My mind raced back through memories, through the council tests that had declared me Omega, through the suppressants they'd given me monthly, claiming they were vitamins. Why would they do that? Power. Noah's expression was grim. True Lunas are rare, Olivia. Females born with alpha-level strength who can lead packs, unite territories. The council fears them because they can't be controlled the same way Omegas can. So they hide them, suppress them, make them believe they're weak.
Luna.
The word felt foreign on my tongue. That's impossible. Is it? He leaned closer, his breath warm against my skin. Feel our bond, Olivia.
Really feel it.
Fated mates bond alpha to alpha, Luna to Luna, balance to balance. What you're feeling right now isn't an Omega's instinct to submit. It's recognition. Equality. I closed my eyes and reached for the thread connecting us, the pull I'd been fighting since the moment our hands touched. And he was right. It wasn't submission I felt. It was partnership. Two halves of a whole, neither above the other, both necessary for completion. The bond wants to seal. Noah's voice was rough. It's been fighting to complete since we met. If we let it, if we accept it, you'll transform. Your true nature will wake up, and there's no going back. What if I'm not strong enough? You saved my life. You infiltrated a rogue camp to save your brother. You've been strong enough all along, Olivia. They just convinced you to forget. His forehead pressed against mine. But it has to be your choice. I won't force this bond, no matter what fate decided. Outside, rogue howls echoed through the night. Inside, something ancient and powerful stirred in my chest, demanding to be acknowledged. I thought about Ethan, about every Omega who'd been told they were worthless. I thought about who I could become if I stopped believing the lies. Seal it. I whispered. I choose this. I choose you. I choose myself. Noah's eyes blazed silver gold as his hand found the back of my neck, and when our lips met, the bond didn't just seal. It ignited. Power flooded through me, burning away years of suppression, and somewhere deep inside, my wolf howled in triumph. Not an Omega submission, but a Luna's call to battle. I was finally completely awake. The High Council chambers were designed to intimidate. Vaulted ceilings carved from ancient stone, 12 throne-like seats arranged in a semicircle, and at the center, a platform where the accused stood under the weight of centuries of pack law. I'd never been inside before. Omegas didn't get summoned to council hearings. But I wasn't Omega anymore, and the 11 council members watching me, with varying degrees of suspicion, seemed to know it. Noah stood beside me, his presence steady despite the chaos we'd walked into. We'd barely crossed back into Silver Moon territory when the summons arrived. Lady Celine had filed formal charges against the Alpha King, claiming he'd orchestrated an attack on the Moon Festival celebration, murdered innocent wolves, and kidnapped his own fiancée's personal servant.
Me.
This is absurd. Noah's voice carried through the chamber with alpha authority. Lady Selene conspired with rogue forces to assassinate me. We have witnesses, evidence. Evidence provided by your alleged fated mate. Counsel Elder Marius leaned forward, his ancient eyes cold and calculating. A conveniently timed bond that appeared the very night of the incident. How extraordinary that you discovered your mate precisely when you needed an alibi. The bond is real. I stepped forward, feeling my Luna power rise to meet the challenge. And I'm not his alibi. I'm a witness to treason. You're a waitress. Selene's voice cut through the chamber, sweet and venomous. She sat in the petitioner's gallery, dressed in white like a grieving bride, her moonstone jewelry catching the light. A nobody who inserted herself into matters far beyond her understanding. My poor Noah has been deceived by a scheming Omega playing dress-up as Luna. I heard you. I turned to face her directly, refusing to be cowed. In the wine cellar, you were coordinating with Fenris, giving positions, confirming the assassination plan. You sold out your own fiancé. Selene's expression shifted to perfect wounded innocence. I was defending him. I'd received intelligence about a rogue threat and was working with our security forces to neutralize it. This girl overheard fragments of a complex operation and twisted them into conspiracy. She looked at the council, tears glistening. She wanted Noah for herself. What better way than to eliminate his intended and frame me as the villain? That's not. I started, but Elder Marius raised his hand. The law is clear. Accusations of this magnitude require corroboration from multiple witnesses of standing. A newly awakened Luna, with questionable origins, does not meet that threshold. His gaze shifted to Noah. Furthermore, Alpha King, you violated several sacred protocols. You broke your engagement bond without council approval. You sheltered an unregistered Luna. You led an unsanctioned raid into disputed territory to rescue a hostage taken by rogues working with my own fiancé. Noah's control was slipping, his alpha power flooding the room in waves that made lesser wolves drop their heads. Allegedly working with Lady Selene. Another elder spoke up, a woman with silver hair and calculating eyes. We have only your mate's word against that of a council-approved bloodline. The law favors established houses over convenient bonds. Selene stood, moving to the center platform with practiced grace. I love Noah. I've always loved him. This union was meant to unite our territories, bring peace to the northern borders. But if he's been compromised by this woman's influence, if he can no longer think clearly, she paused, letting tears trail down her perfect cheeks. Then perhaps he's no longer fit to lead. The chamber erupted in murmurs. I felt Noah go rigid beside me, felt his fury and frustration through our bond. They were doing it. The council was actually considering stripping him of his title based on Selene's performance and technicalities. The council will vote. Elder Marius's voice cut through the noise. All in favor of suspending Alpha King Noah Blackthorn pending investigation of the charges, stripping him of command authority until his fitness to lead can be properly assessed. 7 hands rose. 7 out of 11. More than enough for majority. Motion passes. Marius looked at Noah with something like pity. You are hereby stripped of your Alpha King title, effective immediately. Lady Selene Ashford will assume regency until this matter is resolved. Selene's smile was victory wrapped in sympathy. I'll take good care of your pack, Noah. I promise. The chamber guards moved forward to escort us out, and through our bond one felt Noah's world cracking apart. They'd taken everything. His title, his authority, his ability to protect his pack from the very traitor now positioned to rule them. But as they led us from the chamber, I squeezed his hand and felt him squeeze back. They'd taken his crown, but they hadn't won. Not yet. Because they'd made one critical mistake. They'd left us alive, and they'd underestimated what a waitress turned Luna could do when she stopped being invisible. The attack came 3 nights after the council's verdict, during the eclipse when the moon's power was at its weakest and pack bonds were most vulnerable. I woke to the sound of explosions, stone cracking, and the scent of silver smoke poisoning the air. Through the fortress windows, I could see rogues swarming the outer walls, far more than Fenris had commanded before. Selene had given them an army. Olivia. Noah burst into my room already half-shifted, eyes blazing with feral intensity. They've breached the east gate. We need to evacuate the non-combatants now. The fortress housed more than just warriors. There were elders too old to fight, children from the Pack Academy, injured wolves still recovering in the medical wing. At least 60 lives that couldn't defend themselves against a coordinated assault. And with Noah stripped of his official authority, half his own guards had abandoned their posts, leaving us dangerously undermanned. The tunnels. The words came out before I'd fully thought them through. When I worked at Lunar Peak, I memorized the service routes, the old mining passages beneath the mountain. Some of them must connect to the fortress foundation. Noah's expression shifted from desperation to hope. You're sure?
No.
I grabbed my jacket, already moving. But I'm the best chance they have. 10 minutes later, I was leading a frightened group of 43 wolves through the fortress basement, using instincts I didn't know I possessed. My Luna senses had awakened something else too, a connection to the territory itself, like I could feel the bones of the mountain and trace the paths carved through it centuries ago. This way. I guided them past the wine cellars, through a storage room that smelled of dust and forgotten things, to a section of wall that looked solid but felt hollow. Help me move this. 2 of the stronger wolves pushed, and the false wall gave way, revealing a narrow tunnel descending into darkness. Behind us, the sounds of battle grew louder. Screams. Howls. The distinctive crack of silver rounds finding flesh. Stay close. Stay quiet. I led them into the mountain's depths, one hand trailing the rough stone wall, the other holding a flickering torch. Children whimpered. Elders struggled to keep pace. But they trusted me, this waitress they'd never noticed before, because right now I was the only thing standing between them and death. The tunnel branched 3 times. Each time, I chose by instinct, by the pull of something ancient in my blood that recognized safe paths from dead ends. We emerged an hour later in a cavern I'd only heard about in stories, a sacred space where pack founders had performed bonding ceremonies generations ago. We're underneath the old temple grounds. An elderly female wolf spoke up, her voice trembling with recognition. My grandmother brought me here once. There's an exit that leads to the southern forest. I could still hear explosions above us, muffled by layers of stone but close enough to make the ground shake. Noah was up there, fighting an army with half the forces he needed. Our bond pulsed with his determination and pain, each injury he took resonating through me like phantom wounds. Get them to safety. I told the elders, already turning back toward the tunnel entrance. I'm going back. You can't. A young mother clutched her child. You'll die. Maybe. I met her eyes, feeling my Luna power rise. But I'm not a waitress anymore. And I'm done running. I disappeared back into the tunnels, following the bond that connected me to Noah like a compass pointing home, running toward the battle instead of away from it. The coronation ceremony was supposed to be Selene's triumph. 3 weeks after the eclipse raid that had failed to kill us, she stood before the assembled pack in the grand hall, wearing the silver crown meant for a true Luna, preparing to accept formal authority over the Silver Moon territory. The council had approved it. The old bloodlines had sanctioned it. By every legal measure, she'd won. But she hadn't counted on a waitress knowing how to listen. I entered through the servants' entrance, the same way I'd entered 100 formal events before, invisible in my simple black dress. No one stopped me. No one even looked twice. After all, who notices the help? I moved through the crowded hall like a ghost, weaving between nobles and council members until I reached the base of the dais where Celine stood radiant in white and silver. Noah was there too, forced to attend as a witness to his own defeat, stripped of his title but not yet banished. Our eyes met across the room, and through our bond one felt his confusion shift to understanding. He didn't know what I was planning, but he trusted me. That trust was everything. Elder Marius began the coronation rites, his ancient voice carrying through the hall. By the authority of the High Council and the blessing of the old laws, we recognize Lady Celine Ashford as Regent Luna of the Silver Moon Pack. I challenge this coronation. My voice shouldn't have carried, shouldn't have cut through the assembled pack's murmurs, but my Luna power amplified it, made it impossible to ignore. The hall went silent. Every eye turned to me, the nobody waitress who dared interrupt sacred ceremony. Celine's expression flickered, perfect composure cracking for just a moment. Remove this woman. She has no standing to. I have evidence. I pulled the leather folder from my bag, the one I'd spent 3 weeks gathering while everyone thought I was hiding in shame. Evidence of blood pact with rogue forces. Evidence of conspiracy to commit regicide. Evidence that Lady Celine Ashford is not who she claims to be. I walked up the dais steps, each one feeling like a small victory. When I reached the platform, I opened the folder and held up the first document. This is a communication intercept from the night of the Moon Festival attack. Lady Celine's telepathic signature, confirmed by 3 independent pack seers, coordinating with Fenris. Murmurs erupted. Celine's smile remained frozen. Forgeries. Desperate fabrications from a jealous rival. This, I held up another document, is a blood pact contract, signed in Celine's true name. Not Ashford. Blood Moon. I let that sink in, watched the council members' faces pale. Celine Bloodmoon, daughter of the Rogue King, who tried to overthrow the Northern Territories 30 years ago. The same bloodline the council exiled and declared enemies of all pack law. The hall exploded into chaos. Celine's mask finally shattered, her elegant facade giving way to something feral and desperate. You can't prove. I can. I pulled out the final piece, the one that had taken the most risk to obtain. Your father's signet ring, recovered from Fenris's camp during the Eclipse raid. The same ring visible in your coronation portrait, hidden beneath your gloves right now. Celine's hand moved instinctively to her left glove, and that unconscious gesture was all the confirmation the pack needed. The truth rippled through the crowd like electricity. She was exposed. Everything she'd built, every lie she'd told, unraveling in real time. Traitor, someone shouted. Others took up the cry. The council members rose from their seats, hands reaching for ceremonial weapons. But Celine was faster. She shifted mid-platform, her wolf form erupting with desperate violence, lunging not at the council but at me. The waitress who destroyed everything. Noah moved like lightning. One moment he was in the crowd, the next he was between us, his massive black wolf form absorbing Celine's attack. They collided with bone-breaking force, rolling across the marble floor in a tangle of fur and fangs. The pack backed away, forming a circle, because this wasn't just a fight anymore. This was a challenge for dominance, and pack law demanded they let it play out. Celine was strong, trained by rogue killers, fighting with the desperation of someone with nothing left to lose. But Noah fought with something more powerful. Purpose. Protection. The absolute certainty that he was defending not just his territory but his mate, his future, everything that mattered. The fight lasted 3 minutes. It felt like hours. When it ended, Noah stood over Celine's fallen form, his jaw locked around her throat in the killing position. One bite would end it. One bite would deliver justice for her betrayal, for the wolves who died in her schemes, for the kingdom she'd tried to steal. Through our bond, I felt him hesitate, felt him struggle with mercy versus vengeance. Exile, I said quietly, but every wolf in the hall heard it. Let the rogues have her. Let her live with the consequences of her choices. Noah released her throat. Celine collapsed, beaten and broken, and the council guards moved in to drag her away. Elder Marius approached slowly, the silver crown held in his ancient hands. But he didn't approach Celine's crumpled form. He walked toward Noah, and then, with a deep bow, toward me. The crown belongs to the true Luna, he said, and to her chosen Alpha King. The pack's howl of approval shook the walls, and as Noah shifted back to human form beside me, bloodied but victorious, I realized something profound. I'd started this journey trying to save one life. I'd ended it by saving an entire kingdom. Not bad for a waitress. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of the obsidian fortress, watching the sun rise over the Silver Moon territory, and I barely recognized the world I was looking at. The borders had been redrawn not by conquest, but by consensus. The council had been restructured, with seats now reserved for wolves of all ranks, not just the old bloodlines. The laws that had suppressed Lunas like me, that had kept Omegas voiceless and invisible, had been rewritten in blood and hope and stubborn determination. Below, the rebuilt capital bustled with morning activity. Wolves who'd once lived on the fringes now walked the main streets with their heads high. The Pack Academy had tripled in enrollment, accepting students regardless of rank or lineage. And in the center square, where the council had once passed judgment on the powerless, there now stood a monument. A simple statue of a woman in a waitress uniform, holding a folded napkin. The plaque read, "She who sees the unseen. She who speaks for the silent." I'd tried to have it removed 3 times. Noah had overruled me each time. "You're up early." His arms wrapped around me from behind, his warmth chasing away the morning chill. The mate bond between us had only grown stronger, no longer a desperate survival instinct, but a chosen partnership that deepened with every day. Couldn't sleep. Too much to do. I leaned back against him, feeling his heartbeat steady against my spine. The Northern Territory delegates arrived this afternoon, and I still need to review the trade agreements. Plus, Ethan's graduation ceremony is tomorrow, and I promised I'd help him practice his speech. "You're allowed to rest occasionally, you know." Noah pressed a kiss to my temple. "You've earned it. Rest is for people who aren't trying to rebuild an entire kingdom." But I smiled because the truth was I loved this. Every exhausting, overwhelming, impossible moment of it. I'd spent my whole life being invisible, and now I was the heartbeat of the Silver Moon Pack, the Luna who'd risen from nothing to stand beside the Alpha King as an equal. The doors behind us opened, and my brother appeared, looking far too energetic for dawn. Ethan had thrived since the coronation, his natural brilliance finally given space to flourish. He'd been appointed to the council's legal reform committee, the youngest wolf ever to hold the position. The delegation from the Coastal Pack just sent word. "They want to meet with you specifically, Luna Olivia. They've heard about your reforms and want to implement similar changes in their territory." Ethan's grin was pure pride. "My sister, the revolutionary." "I'm not a revolutionary. I'm just someone who got tired of the old ways." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. I had started a revolution, whether I'd meant to or not. By refusing to stay invisible, by demanding to be heard, by proving that power came not from bloodlines but from courage and choice, I'd changed everything. Noah's hand found mine, our fingers intertwining. Ready for another day of changing the world? I looked out over the territory one more time at the kingdom we were building together, at the future we were fighting for. Somewhere out there, other wolves were still being told they were too weak, too small, too insignificant to matter. Other voices were being silenced before they could speak. But they'd hear my story. They'd see what a waitress could become when she stopped apologizing for taking up space. Always ready, I said, and meant it. Because I wasn't invisible anymore. I was finally, completely, undeniably seen. And I was just getting started. If you enjoyed this story and want more like it, please like the video, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support truly means the world to me and helps this channel grow. Thank you for being here.